There are 43 million communists in the world. These communists control and enslave more than 1 billion people. Every one of them claims to be a Marxist-Leninist. They claim to be practitioners of the science of Marxism-Leninism. The two men who have been most influential in forming the doctrines of communism and organizing the conquests of communism were Marx and Lenin. Lenin defined Marxism as the doctrine of class warfare plus the dictatorship of the proletariat. To understand the doctrine of class warfare, we need to understand the Marxist doctrine of class. To understand the Marxist doctrine of class, we need to understand the Marxist view of man and society and nature. We need to understand Marxist materialism. Karl Marx was an atheist and a materialist, and from his atheistic and materialistic doctrines, he built the doctrines of communism. Marxism and communism without atheism are meaningless. Marx said religion is the opiate of the masses. Lenin said atheism is a natural and inseparable portion of Marxism, of the theory and practice of scientific socialism. When Earl Browder was the leader of the American Communist Party, he said, "We communists are against all religion." Not so long ago, Nikita Khrushchev was asked by the French socialists, "Must you be an atheist to be a communist?" He replied, "Yes, you must be an atheist," but then he added this interesting corollary. He said, "Some of the comrades are atheists in the party, but believers at home." The significance of this remark will become clear when we discuss the science of Marxism-Leninism and the manner in which the communists believe that it is their duty and responsibility to scientifically exploit the existing social forces of the community, of which religion is one. Therefore, although they're atheists, it is legitimate for them under necessary circumstances to act as believers and to pretend that they are believers in the service of communism. But atheism is essential to communist doctrine. Marx was not merely an atheist, he was a materialist in the sense that he believed, in the words of his great follower Mao Zedong, there is nothing in the universe except matter in motion. In other words, man is nothing more than matter in motion. And from this materialistic base, Marx derived his doctrine of man, human nature. What is man according to this Marxist doctrine? Man is a material machine. Man is a body. The machinery is very complex. It is called the brain. And the machinery of the brain is responsible for the totality of the activities, the thoughts, and the emotions of man. The movement of brain particles and impulses is the totality of human being. Marx then believed and taught that the structure of the human brain was formed by the experiences provided by the environment. And since the environment was primarily economic, it was concerned with the production of the necessities of life. the productive processes that gave people food and clothing and shelter and transportation. It was this economic environment that provided the experiences. These experiences accumulated within the brain, formed the structure of the brain, and out of this brain structure, which was formed by these experiences, there emerged the adult finished product, the thinking, speaking, acting individual. So man is the product of his economic environment. Human nature is the product of its economic environment. As a recent Soviet statement puts it, there is no such thing as human nature. Human nature is formed in the mold of its environment. Change the mold and you change the man. So the materialistic doctrines of Marx led to the conclusion that man is an economically conditioned machine. He then said that the productive system known as capitalism had basically provided two environments into which babies were born, and in each of these environments they received similar experiences. These similar experiences accumulated within their brain structure and created similar brain structures in the babies born into these environments. Now, these similar brain structures produced similar adults, adults who thought alike, who felt alike, who had common emotions, common moral codes. They were similar thinking and feeling individuals. And this group of people who were formed so that they thought and felt alike because of the similarities of their environment, Marx called a class. So that people were basically members of a class, and the class was a unit which was produced by the economic forces within society. Marx then proceeded to say that basically the capitalist economic system provided two environments. Therefore, it provided two classes. There was the environment of ownership of the means of production. There was a small segment of people who owned the factories, the machinery, the tools with which the goods of society were produced. These individuals had one set of experiences. The children born to these people had a similar set of experiences. Now, the name that Marx gave to this class of ownership of the means of production was the bourgeoisie. On the other hand, Marx contended that there was a much larger group of people who worked in the factories, who worked at the machinery, who sold their labor power for wages. This group of people had similar experiences. Therefore, similar ideas were developed within their minds. They shared common emotions. They pursued common objectives, and they constituted a class. The name that Marx gave to the class of industrial labor was the proletariat. And Marx contended that these two classes were the basic division in every society, particularly in capitalist society. He traced previous historic periods when primitive communism prevailed, followed by slavery, followed by feudalism, where there were different class divisions, but the dominant class divisions of the age of capitalism, Marx claimed, was the division into bourgeoisie and proletariat. He then proceeded to state that there was a fundamental conflict of interest between these two classes. The bourgeoisie was concerned with profit, extracting as much profit as possible from their machines and the labor of their workers. The proletariat was concerned with receiving as much in wages as they possibly could for their labor. Profit and wages were in conflict. Therefore, between these two classes, there was a basic conflict which dominated everything, and the name given to this conflict Marx called the class war. This basic doctrine of class and class warfare is fundamental to communism. They believe that the proletarian class is historically ordained to world triumph, to overthrow the bourgeoisie, to establish dictatorship. But the technique for the establishment of dictatorship is to be the Communist Party, which was the brainchild of the great Marxist Lenin. Since morality and ideas are determined by the class to which one belongs, there is a great division throughout the world in the field of morality, in the field of ideas, in every field. When we apply this to morality, the communists would say there is no such thing as good and no such thing as evil. That which is good for the bourgeoisie is frequently evil for the proletariat. That which is good for the proletariat is evil for the bourgeoisie. Therefore, there is proletarian good and bourgeois good. There is proletarian evil and bourgeois evil. There is this fundamental division throughout society, and the communists have the historic, inescapable duty of identifying themselves with the interests of the so-called proletariat and directing its progress to revolution and ultimately to the total assumption of power. Therefore, inherent within communism, there is this concept of inevitable revolution, and every act which advances the prospect of revolution is to the communists a good act. If we desire to avoid revolution and its horrors, we must stop this communist program.